Hi guys, and welcome to another tactical video. Today I'm going to be talking about the Landspeeder. As you can see in front of you, I have just finished painting this one. I'm going to be using it in a tournament very soon, coming up within a month. So basically I've been getting a lot of use with Landspeeders lately, at all different types of point levels. I'm a very big fan of them and what they can give for your army. So first off, the basic stuff that a lot of people will already know. They take up a fast attack slot. There's pretty much no way to get a Landspeeder without that, except for the Landspeeder Storm, but I will cover that in a different video because that has a lot of different tactics associated with it, so I'll go into that another time. But for now, just the basic Landspeeder. Basically there's a few builds you can have. They all tend to be quite cheap, so that's the main benefit of the Landspeeder, is that it's very, very cheap for what it gives you. Basically it's a fast skimmer, so what that means is it can move 12 inches in the movement phase. It can flat out another 18 inches in the shooting phase instead of firing. So, you know, you're getting a lot of potential movement there. Of course it comes from Jink. It can deep strike, and because it's fast it can fire up to 2 weapons at full ballistic skill. Now you may have noticed here this Landspeeder has 2 heavy flamers. We've got one on the bottom and one here that the gunner's using. Other options you can take a heavy bolter, you can take the multi-melters, and you can take the missile launchers, Typhoon missile launchers, which go on the sides. Basically, if you start putting on a lot of upgrades and that kind of thing, it can get quite expensive, because at the end of the day this thing is open topped and it's only armor 10 all round and it's only got 2 hull points. So it's paper thin, but you do get that cover safe so long as you move and that kind of thing. So, and it's so fast, you know, you can hide it pretty well. It's quite a small model. So, with those in mind, sometimes it can be quite expensive if you load up on things. Now, the other thing in deciding what to equip your Landspeeder with is basically what kind of role do you want it to perform, and you have to be careful with your weapon selections that it can actually work well together. So, for example, if you take the missile launchers, okay, they have a long range and 2 shots each, which is very good. The problem is, if you take a multi-melter with that, then that has much shorter range. So, even though it's performing a similar role in terms of anti-tank, one weapon wants to be up close and one weapon wants to be far away. Now, you could argue that that gives you versatility, but what that basically means is you're paying for weapons that, you know, there's always going to be one weapon that you're not really using effectively. And of course, as soon as this thing dies, which it probably will die, then, you know, you're losing more points, you know. So generally speaking, you want to tool them up similarly for the job. So you could put 2 multi-melters on there, and that's pretty good, because, you know, you're getting 2 shots instead of 1. So you're much more likely to kill your target. If you're going with the missiles, then you're going to be hanging back, so you might be better off just taking the heavy bolter, since it's free anyway. And as a result, it means you're getting that extra range. So if you're firing at infantry, then at least you're getting a little extra there. And even some light vehicles, you know, it's better than nothing. My personal setup, as you can see here, is the 2 heavy flamers, and I like this because it's a fast skimmer, which means it can move the 12 inches and then fire 2 heavy flamers, which is very nice. And basically this setup only costs 60 points. So I can move, get a cover save, and of course hit with 2 heavy flamers on an infantry unit or something like that. I've actually taken out vehicles with this unit, and all for 60 points. It's pretty good. Now, another good thing about the Landspeeder that you can do is take it in squadrons of 3. So if you take one of these and then you upgrade it to another 2, then obviously they have to stay in formation as a single unit, but, you know, you're getting more firepower and you can keep your other fast attack slots for other vehicles if you wish. Now I would do that if you are running out on slots, and also it makes them more survivable. So for example, in the scouring, one of these is worth a victory point if it gets destroyed, because it's fast attack. However, if you have a squadron and all three need to die before they get destroyed. Now the drawback to this, of course, is that if somebody devotes enough firepower to this unit, like for instance if they sprayed heavy bolters into this Landspeeder squadron, then as soon as one dies, then the other shots carry over to the next, so you may eventually you run the risk of running a lot more damage occurring to your units than if you keep them separately. The other drawback is, of course, they all have to attack the same target. So if you had some with melters in the same unit as some with flamers, then if you shoot tanks and the flamers aren't going to do much, and vice versa. So you're not getting as big a bang for your buck as that, and you may overkill if you're like using that many melters against a single target when they could be better off shooting different targets. So generally speaking, I think it's better to keep them separate. One of the things you can do that a lot of people do seem to like is taking one heavy flamer and one multi-melter. And the benefits of this is that you get to pick your targets, and there's always going to be something it can shoot. However, that does mean it's going to be less effective at each roll. And, a single multi-melter shot often can miss, and, then you're in trouble, that kind of thing. It also means you have that dilemma when this thing is in use, in that you have like a tank somewhere, you have an infantry unit somewhere, and you don't really know which one you should go for. They're both an equal threat, that kind of thing. That means in the game you have to make that decision, and it could end up being the wrong decision, especially if you went for the tank and it misses, or you go for the flamer and for some reason you botch a bunch of the rolls, that kind of thing. So because of that, if you just gear up for the one specific purpose, then you'll never have that situation. And okay, there may not be a target that's particularly good for it, but how many games have you played where there's never a use for a melter, or never a use for two flamers? It's pretty rare. Even at the end of the game, there's usually something they can do, and if you get into the situation where there's barely anything left for the melters to shoot, for example, and they only have to shoot infantry, well, you're probably in a position of power by then anyway, and this Landspeeder isn't going to matter by then. So, basically for 60 points for this setup, and for, I think it's 70 points for the twin mill setup, that's pretty good. That's very cheap, and basically if you have some leftover points in the leftover slot, of course, then you could do a lot worse than taking a Landspeeder. Now what I personally like to do is take two of them at 1750 points or above. I also take two at 1000 points, but at 1500 points I have a different list where I only take one. But generally I'll always take at least one. But what I do is I keep it in reserve and deep strike them separately. They're two separate units. And previously I have drop pods coming in that have locator beacons on, and of course there's nasty things in the drop pods. So what that means is my opponent will have to deal with the nasty thing coming at them from the drop pod, and it is usually nasty enough to warrant their attention. Like it could be a dreadnought, or it could be a stern guard squad, or it could be a command squad, that kind of thing. So something that warrants their attention. But at the same time, they probably want to deal with that drop pod, because if they don't deal with the drop pod, then I have a locator beacon, which means these Landspeeders, when they come in, are going to be dead on target. They won't scatter, and I can line them up perfectly for the flame templates to do as much damage as possible. And that is pretty damn cool. So what that means is, they're distracted by a single drop pod full of things. Okay, and say they manage to kill both of them, then I have another drop pod with a locator beacon on that they can use, and they've expended a lot of resources into killing these things, and then the rest of my army's still there marching up. Okay, and say even if it gets worse and I lose all that kind of, so if I lose the drop pods, blah blah blah, all I have is these speeders coming. Well, deep strike them aggressively anyway, because, you know, 1 in 3 chance that you're going to get dead on where you want to be. You might scatter a little bit and still be in range, and, you know, even if you scatter tremendously and you're out of range, you can turbo boost them. They'll get better cover save, get them into the exact position you want, and, you know, then there's still a threat on the table for use next turn. And even if you mishap and, you know, loses hull point and mobilises itself, something like that, big deal, you know. It's only 60 points at the end of the day. But the amount of damage these things can do is tremendous, and, you know, the amount of attention they will gain in terms of people shooting at them, you know, is far and above, what, 60 points. And, you know, that's going to protect the rest of your army. They're not actually that easy to kill, even though bolters can kill them. Because of their cover save, and because you can hide them easily in, you know, out of line of sight or behind ruins and that kind of thing, they're actually quite hard to kill. Especially by the point they come on where, you know, there's so many other things for the enemy to deal with that, you know, these are going to soak up a lot of shots, or they're going to be ignored. And, you know, ignore them at your peril, but likewise shoot them at your peril, you know. And that's basically how you win at 40k in general, is you just end up overwhelming your opponent with far too many hard choices. And no matter what choice they make, you know, it's still working to your plan, and that's how things work. And Landspeeders are perfect for that. So if you've seen my glass cannon video, you'll realise that Landspeeder is basically a glass cannon. It's very weak defensively, but very powerful offensively, and, you know, it's very, very cheap. So you could do a lot worse. Basically, if I have like 60 points, 70 points, 80 points left over, my first stop is a Landspeeder, because it is really, really good for what it gives to your army. Basically, I wouldn't always take them. If you have plenty of other speed or distraction units, then, you know, you don't need them, but they do offer a lot. So I would advise trying them out if you haven't. As I say, my personal favourite is the 2 heavy flamer variant, because it's very cheap and very powerful. But, you know, there's plenty of other ways to run them. So yeah, let me know how your attempts at using them work. I'm very interested to hear how effective they've been for your own army, or if you've thought up any new ways of using them that no one else has, that kind of thing. Got some fiendish tricks with them. And yeah, don't be afraid to subscribe, leave a like, or leave a comment. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with more videos soon.